the Balancing Fire workshop, and this again was something that Dr. Andrew Weil worked along with Mega Foods. Oh, do you have to have that on? Oh, me. Okay, thanks. I wasn't sure what that was for because they are videotaping it. Otherwise, they hear my voice and it's just a black. So they decided, hey, you need a light. Anyway, so we're going to look with different strategies to help maintain the whole body inflammatory response. And outside of what we talk about today, there's a lot more, obviously, that you can deal with, and there's a lot more as far as supplements out there beyond what we'll be talking about today. But these are some great products that we'll be talking about. So what is inflammation? This is acute inflammation, which our bodies, we naturally need that. This is for the local heat, redness, swelling that we encounter. But if we have what's called chronic inflammation, and that's driven by a lot of different things, and stress, which is why we talk about it in this presentation, is because stress actually increases the leukotrienes and the COX and the LOX, the ones that actually increase the inflammatory cascade. So stress is a huge piece of this. So chronic inflammation happens when inflammation continues over the extended period of time. And again, as I was saying, many aspects of our diet and lifestyle, which I was saying, stressors, exercise, whatnot, contribute to our bodies being in a chronic state of inflammation. And chronic inflammation, when it's left untreated, it will turn into something that's not beneficial to our body any longer. So, this is what we're going to be actually touching upon, the lifestyle, the nutrition, and the supplements to help balance that fire. So I'm going to now X out of this and get into the video. And it's going to be kind of going back and forth a little bit, so I apologize for that.
I'm Dr. Andrew Weil, founder and director of the Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine.
And there's something so powerful in bringing people of common interest together for learning.
I think it's much more powerful than learning on your own. I've long recommended that if you want to develop better living habits, a very easy way to do that is to spend more time in the company of people who have the habits you want. And community ties are essential to good emotional well-being, and that loss of that strongly undermines emotional wellness.
Okay, so let me get back out of this. Back to this. Okay. So, as I was speaking about stress, this was something we dealt with a lot when we were dealing with the workshop for the spontaneous happiness, because stress, again, drives so many things in our lives. I had one client in, and she was, her personality was very sort of frantic, and so she said, well, I have blood pressure issues, and she had anxiety and sleep issues, and it just went on. And I said, well, honestly, and I drew a little picture, and I said, take stress. And so she wrote down stress, and I said, and write down all the things that you're naming here, and then we drew arrows out to that, and I said that all is attributed from the stress that's going on in your life. So she didn't actually see that and put that all together and connect it, as simple as that was. So I just simply pointed that out to her, and I said, we need to be dealing with the stress. And even after I finished meeting with her, I saw her back out in the store when I was walking through, and she kept asking me about, what about this, and then the chia seeds, and should I be doing, and I said, you know what? You need to be dealing with the stress piece first. So I said, stay with that. 2 weeks I'll see you. We're going to focus on just those things and go from there. So some of the things that we dealt with were yoga and meditation and visualization and gratitude lists and gratitude letters, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So some of the not-so-good things that stress does to the body, well, the adrenal glands, which not a lot of people understand how important the adrenals are, but they're small, walnut-sized glands that sit on, or maybe they're almond-sized, but anyway, they sit on top of the kidneys, and they work with the the thyroid and the hypothalamus and the pituitary at regulating. They actually make about 28 different hormones for sleep hormones, for stressor hormones, for sex, for eating, for all the different hormones. So it's a constant feedback going on all day that you're not really aware of, but it's a negative, positive, fluxing back and forth. So when you're stressed, your body goes back into the prehistoric times of when we needed the stress for survival. So it's your fight or flight. So what happens when you're stressed? What happens to the body? Anybody? Digestion shuts down. So a lot of people come in and they complain about acid reflux and they're burping and a lot of GI issues. Some people have ulcers. Because when you're fighting or running away, do you need to be eating and digesting? No. What normally is pooling in, when you're at rest, the blood pools in the brain and the body cavity. But when you're stressed, your body doesn't know stress from stress from stress. So it could be, I'm taking a test in a couple weeks, and it's a very important test, or I'm getting married in a few months, or someone's passed away. It doesn't know what between what. So it's just stress across the board. So your body thinks, oh my gosh, I need to take all this blood from here, and it needs to go out to the extremities because I need to fight or I need to run away. But a lot of times we're stressed and we're on the phone, we're stressed and yelling at our kids, we're stressed and we're on the computer, we're stressed and driving. So are we running or fighting? Typically not. So that's why digestion shuts down, the digestive juices shut down, and also reproduction shuts down. So a lot of women with issues with fertility, that's one of the things that's attributed, because you don't need to reproduce when you're in stress mode. You just need survival, and that's what your brain thinks is survival. So cortisol is increased when you're stressed, and that typically is a fat-storing hormone. So that's needed for if you were running away from an animal and you're in a cave for 3-4 days, you can survive because you're running off of that adrenaline, and your body is breaking down fat cells to make glucose for the body, for energy, for the brain and everything else to run. But we don't need that, because typically what do a lot of people do when they're stressed? Eat, exactly, eat more. Some people don't. Some actually are stressed and some people don't eat, and or stressed and depressed. It just depends on what's going on. If you're depressed, some people don't eat, some do eat. Stressed, some people do, some don't. So cortisol is increased so that your body's thinking, oh, I need more energy for all these muscles to run away. So it's thinking I need more. Insulin goes up in the body. It needs more glucose to grab a hold of. So your body's demanding more energy, but we don't work it off. We don't run it off. So when we're faced with these stressful events, and when our body's stressed, we go into that sympathetic fight or flight mode. High cortisol, they have definitely seen you've probably heard of the adrenal burnout. Has anybody heard of that? The different stages. There's typically 3 stages, and there are some books written about that too. One called Adrenal Fatigue. Dr. Titobaum, when he came at Drumlin's, and he talked about fibromyalgia, a lot of it went back to your adrenals and stressors and stress mechanisms. So there's 3 phases. The first phase is called the alarm. So say you're out there and you see someone spinning out behind you thinking they're going to come and hit you, and you just brace and nothing happens. They come out of it, you're fine, hormones quiet down and everything's good, and we all go along our way. So that's just, and then you move into the second phase, which could be weeks to months, depending on. And so that's, again, something where you're studying for an exam or getting ready for marriage or a new job or moving or a baby coming. So you're going to have more stress. But that's, again, something temporary. But what your body does, your adrenals start to grow bigger. And then after a while, they can only grow so big, they start to siphon off all the reserves wherever the nutrients are in the body, the electrolytes, the minerals, all the B vitamins, magnesium. So it just starts sucking it from everywhere to try to help keep you going. It's that where you feel like you're just dragging yourself through. That's the third phase. That's typically where people end up with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, where it's gone on from weeks to months to years. I've had some, in particular women, because we're the typical caretakers for ourselves, the family, and then everybody else, right? So this woman was just really, I mean, she was at her wit's end, actually suicidal, which was pretty scary. But she had been traveling back and forth to take care of her mother and father who wanted to stay in their home, and they were elderly, and she lived far away. So it was a difficult thing. She had done this for 6 years, and her health was going down, and her husband's health had taken a turn, and then she was helping a friend with health issues, and I said, where are you going to say no? You need to say no somewhere, and you need to put some healthy boundaries somewhere, because if you're not there for your own health, you can't take care of everybody else. And that was hard for her to hear, and I said, what are you doing for you? And she said, well, I like to help people and take care of them. And I said, I see that, and I get that. And I said, but what are you doing for you? And she couldn't answer me. And I said, no, I need to know for your own self, for your own happiness and enjoyment, not just taking care of other people, for you and you alone. And that was such a foreign concept for her, and it is typically, and I'm not to peg women, but we typically have that where we put everybody else in front of us, so we need to learn to start taking care of ourselves, and it's called self-care. Self-love, self-care. It's not selfish. Actually, it is selfish, but it's a good way of being selfish. You need to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you can't take care of the others. I mean, Mother Teresa and Gandhi would say that if you don't take care of yourself first, I can't take care of the masses as well. So a lot of people have to put that into perspective. So that stress, when it comes down the pike and the adrenals have nothing more to pull from, and you're not eating well, and you're not sleeping well, and then blood pressure goes up, and anxiety, panic attacks, weight issues because you're stress eating. So all these, again, go back to stress and stressor mechanisms and finding out how to cope better. So there are a lot of different things that you can do. We need to get more into this rest and digest, which is out of the sympathetic and into the parasympathetic. And this is where you can relax the muscles, digest more. This is where meditation is really, really helpful, I find, or the deep breathing, which we're going to be going into. Some of the things when I went to Dr. Weil's website, he talked about, I was just going to mention a few things. Stress has been linked to all the leading causes of death, such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, accidents, and suicide. Almost 90% of all visits to primary health care providers are due to stress-related symptoms. Nearly 1/2 of all adults suffer adverse effects from stress. It's estimated that 1 million Americans miss work due to stress-related complaints. Workplace violence has been attributed to stress. Homicide is the second leading cause of fatal occupational injury. So the immune system is depressed. We already talked about how there's insomnia, migraines, irritable bowel. It all depends on where you actually manifest it in the body. There are a lot of things that come out when you're stressed and your immune system drops, and then all of a sudden someone will have cancer or some autoimmune disease that they can't deal with. That was in their genetic coding, but it was kept down and taken care of and in check. But now with this extreme stress, the body can't handle it anymore. So all of a sudden, here you are, you're presented with this and then this. So some of the steps that he says in here, determine what's causing the stress in your life. Keep a diary and record the situations that might be causing some issues for you. And write down your physical symptoms and emotions. Open up. Learn how to express your thoughts and feelings. Don't be afraid to say no. Believe me, that is like hard for so many people. I have to tell them, you know, it's okay to say no to some different things. And honestly, for myself, it was something that I had to learn as well. And once I did, I said, wow, this feels good. So I would just say, sorry, can't do that. It's out of my realm. I don't have the ability to do that because I just can do this right now. And it's not that I don't want to help you, but I just can't. So once you do it, actually it's easier to continue doing it. Learn how to express your feelings, like saying, I feel angry. And simplify your life. Reduce stress at work. laugh it off. Laughing is very important. Take a media break or news fast. We talked about this in the spontaneous happiness class, and some people said it was more stress to stay away from the news because they wanted to be so on top of what's going on. Well, I'm the opposite, where if I watch too much of it, it starts to bring me down and I start worrying, so I just stay away. So he had said just take a break of it from like a week and not watch any news, not read the newspaper, and see how you feel, if that brings your stress levels down. Or even just try a day. Mind-body exercises such as breath work, meditation, yoga, biofeedback, caffeine, eliminating caffeine if you have a lot of caffeine coming in from your diet. So stress definitely is a part of our lives. We need it there for various different reasons. Okay, but basically what it is we need to learn the coping mechanisms. And not a lot of us are taught that when we're growing up. We are shown what is around our environment and how our parents and peers and whatnot react. So we don't know, is this a right reaction or not, and how should I talk it out, because maybe families didn't express their feelings. So there are things that are going to be beyond our control, but how we bounce back from it and come back to center is what's really important. If it's a constant, this is dragging you and this is dragging you, and this, you need to learn and look at, okay, what is something that I can cut out or shift or change in some way. So we need to have more of this being able to bounce back so we can become more resilient overall. So as I spoke about the yoga, meditation, and breathing techniques, and this is a quote from Dr. Andrew Weil: the most effective anti-anxiety measure I know is the 4-7-8 breath. Now we're going to do this, and he's going to walk you through it with the video. This is basically how it goes, but if you can't hold it for the 7, because it's basically going the tongue on the back of the, kind of behind the teeth on that ridge up, you put your tongue and rest it there, not directly the teeth, that ridge that goes up on your soft, on the palate part. So you just relax with it there. You go in on the count of 4 through your nose, hold 7, and then out 8. So he's going to walk you through that. Now, some people, it was too much to hold 7. So you just kind of hold it to the point of where it becomes tighter in the back of your throat, maybe 2, maybe 3, 4, and then let it out. And after this, we'll talk a little bit about how you feel. Some people might be a little tired, some might be more relaxed, some might be lightheaded. So let's get out of there and into this.
I'm now going to teach you a specific breathing technique for relaxation. In fact, this is the most effective relaxation technique I've ever found, and the most powerful and specific anti-anxiety measure that I've ever found. This is a breathing technique that comes from yoga practice. In yoga practice, you're often asked to keep your tongue in the yogic position, which means touching the tip of your tongue to the ridge of tissue just above and behind your upper front teeth, like that, and maintain that contact through the whole exercise. In this exercise, you're going to breathe in through your nose quietly and out through your mouth, making a noise. The noise is like, so it helps if you have your lips pursed outward and tongue pressed upward. So the exercise is like this. You begin by letting all the air out through your mouth. Then you inhale through your nose quietly to a count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 7. Exhale through your mouth to a count of 8. And then you do this for a total of 4 breath cycles, and that's it. So I'm going to demonstrate this to you, and then we can do it together and I'll count for you. So it looks like this. And that's all. So let's try this together, and I'll count for you at a reasonable pace. What limits you is how long you can comfortably hold your breath. As you practice this over time, it's good to slow the whole thing down, but as a start, I'll count at a moderate pace. So let all the air out through your mouth. Close your mouth, in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Close in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Close in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Now just breathe normally and notice any changes that you might feel. You might feel a little lightheaded on first doing this. That will pass with practice. You might have some sense of relaxation that will become very powerful as you repeat this. You've got to do this at least twice a day. This works like water cutting the Grand Canyon. It's not the intensity with which you do it. It's the regularity. You're putting a signal into your nervous system, and over time that will produce very dramatic changes in how your nervous system functions. So the minimum practice is to do this 4 breath cycles twice a day, every day without fail. At the end of a month, if you're comfortable with it, you can increase to 8 breath cycles, but that's the absolute maximum, and then the basic practice is 8 breath cycles twice a day. You can do it more frequently. You can do it as often as you want, but never more than those number of breaths at one time. And as you get comfortable with this, and after a month, month and a half of practice, you can begin using this for specific purposes, especially to cut off anxiety, any feelings of nervousness. You will find that this works just great.
All right. So how many felt lightheaded? Okay. Anybody else have any other comments on how they felt? More relaxed? Yawning? Kind of more, right. So I think that's, again, very powerful. That is something that I did when we were doing our spontaneous happiness. This is one of the sections that he talked about. And initially I was doing this quite often. I found I was doing it on my way into work and then my way home from work. And I thought, okay, is there stress coming in here? And well, when it was around Christmas time and I had shut my radio off and then just, well, actually I think I switched the channel to some Christmas music, and I love Christmas. And so I listened to the music, and it was very soothing to me, and all of a sudden I felt like, as I was driving home, it was much better, and driving in, and I thought, I must have been listening to music at that point in time that I didn't need more stressors and agitation. It must have just been enough to push me over the edge, because when I switched over, I didn't find I needed to do the breathing techniques then. I would do it at different points and times during the day. Like if I was switching from one event to another and I needed to just take some breaths in between. I'm very much aware of it now, and I've always considered myself more of a shallow breather, unfortunately. I just, right from the diaphragm up here, not how they say, usually watch how a baby breathes and their stomach goes all the way out, and that's the way that we should be relaxing and breathing. Does anybody do this on a regular basis? Any of the breathing? Slow, good job. Another one. Yep. And does it help keep you more centered, typically? Right. The whole feel, and it really does. That's a good point, actually. And it's funny because a lot of people, when they go into the doctors, they have the white coat syndrome. I don't. I end up just, I don't know why, I guess because I've always had good experiences. So I just kind of downshift, and my blood pressure is usually very, very low, unless I'm like rushing to get there, and then it might be a little bit higher. But so that's an excellent point, though, too. It really does that little bit of anxiety, and it doesn't have to be that whole long 4 cycles of the 4-7-8 breath. Even if you just take one deep breath and maybe 2 or 3 of them, it really does help. Another thing I want to point out that they don't talk about in this, well, they kind of touched upon the meditation. Anybody here regular meditators? Just a few? It can be like a minute a day where you're sitting there in your chair and just keeping your body and mind still. That can just be, a regular meditation. And that is something that I have yet to even continue to do. That's something that was on my spontaneous happiness plan that I need to incorporate a little bit more. But we had a wonderful man, you might know, Steve Wexler. He's actually going to be doing a talk on breathe in, peace out, or something like that coming up this month. And he's phenomenal. He's traveled the world in India several times. And he came in here and he really put it into perspective. He said, you don't have to have your incense going and special music and have your head wrapped up and just thinking of all these mantras and chanting. He said, you basically just have to find a quiet place where you can sit comfortably in a chair. He doesn't recommend that you do it while you're sleeping or laying down in bed, because you'll typically fall asleep. But I'm going to do this exercise with you guys, and it's just going to be roughly a minute or maybe even less, where I'm going to have you close your eyes, and I'm just going to have you be still. And I found that tiny little bit of time was a huge difference. It changed the whole room as far as everybody just seemed a little more like. So I think that that's very important. And they found that those that meditated 20 minutes twice a day found that they changed the brain chemistry, which they call the neuroplasticity, where they found that there was this man, I forget his name, but he was some scientist and turned into a Buddhist monk. And he actually is considered the happiest man on the earth, because they tracked his brain waves. They tracked all these different long-term meditators, and they found that when you meditate, I forget which side of the brain is, but one side that is increasing your happiness hormones like serotonin and whatnot was increased, and it actually suppresses the other side, which is more of your depression and anxiety of the frontal lobe. So they found that you can actually change the chemistry of your brain, just like you're trying to learn a new sport like golfing or tennis or music, taking up piano or the violin. It's the same thing as retraining the brain. So you can train your brain for happiness versus depression. And I did definitely see with the breathing techniques. But one of the other ones outside of the breathing and the meditation, there was visualization, where you can visualize yourself in a certain place and wherever it might be your happy spot on the beach. Some people like the beach. Some people like, I don't know, Ireland, wherever it may be. And that actually helps them feel happier. Another thing, too, is what I found, which was very powerful for myself, and I continue to do it, is the gratitude list. It's writing down 3 things a day, or even if you don't write it down, you just make mental notes of it, of what you're grateful for. And it can be simple as, and I found myself writing down, I'm grateful I got to work safe. I'm grateful that the roads were dry today. I'm grateful that I have heat. I'm grateful that I have running water and it's warm. I've had times where I've run out of oil and I didn't know that my oil was connected to my water heater. So for 4 days I had no heat and no hot water. So I've experienced those things. And so I know if you go to the basic levels that we tend to forget about that, because we're always looking at others and what they have and what we don't have. And one time I was coming into work, and it was one of these really bad snowy days. And long story short, and I'm sorry, Flo, you've heard this, where I was taking my cat to the vet. And I didn't end up taking her there. I had to get back in my car, drive a half hour back home instead of come to work from there. And then I dropped her off and then got back on the thruway and came out to work. So I was a couple hours late. and my cat didn't get to the vet and get taken care of, so it was all sorts of frustrations. But I was very calm through the whole thing. I just turned on my Christmas music, and I just sat there and I said, you know what, this is all for some kind of a reason. And I find out later with one of my good friends who told me of a different vet to take it to, I saved myself $400. It was less stressful. They were wonderful. And then one of the other things, too, is when I got on the thruway, I saw this picture of a beautiful little girl, and I thought, oh, what is that? Are they having a benefit for something? So I went up to it, and they said they were having a benefit for her funeral services to pay for them. And I just, having a 6-year-old daughter myself, I mean, it just really just, so I thought, you know what, that's perspective right there. And it just, I'm constantly being put into perspective of things like that. So for me, that was one of the most powerful ones, as well as the breathing and the meditation. So what I'm going to have you do right now is just close your eyes and get comfortable. Put down the books that might on your lap where they're not going to fall off. And all I'm going to have you do is just want you to think, be still. And just be still. Once again, just be still. And when you're ready, you can just start to slowly open your eyes. How many people are about ready to fall asleep? I see a few that were yawning. Were you able to just keep your mind still and the body still and just kind of focus on the breathing? I found that just some so-so. You know, I found that when he said that to me, that was very powerful, because when I think of being still, I'm thinking of everything being still. My breath, my mind, my body. So that was very powerful for me. So again, it's basically to find different techniques that are going to work the best for you and that you're going to be able to continue with. So whether it is meditation, the breathing, the visualization, the gratitude list, any of those are wonderful things. Yoga, anybody practice yoga regularly? Some people? What's that? What's Thai? Oh, that sounds very interesting. Where do they offer that? Really? That sounds cool, because Pilates can be a little more, intense. Great. That's phenomenal. So I think that's wonderful. So this is something, again, you can choose some of those techniques you can incorporate into your life. Now, exercise is another stress reducer, or at least it should be a stress reducer. How many are regular exercises? And when I say that, I mean, at least 3-4 times a week or so. Okay, great. And it should be something that you love to do, or at least enjoy to do, maybe not love to do all the time. When I was running, even on days like this, or on days when it was pelting me and I could barely see with my eyelashes almost frozen together, I still even enjoyed that, because I love the fact that I'd like to be outside. Growing up on the farm in the country, that was very important to me. It was a way for me to connect and to just ground myself. And I would stretch on a tree, because a friend told me if you want to ground yourself, just go out and walk barefoot on the grass and touch a tree, because you feel the big root system and what it's connected into. So it really gives you that sense of, you're just a small thing in this whole big world. So that was very powerful for me. And I also liked, especially in the winter, as crazy as that was, it was very peaceful, because all I heard was my footsteps and my breath, and it was very sort of like meditative. And anytime if I left the house and I was stressed or needed to work something else out in my head, inevitably I came back home and it was already all worked out. So it really was a huge stress reliever. So it shouldn't be something that's like, oh my gosh, I have to get my bags and pay for it and get to the gym, and just something where you're not going to like it and you're not going to keep going to it and keep adhering to. So to find something that you really like to do, and if you are not in a program of some sort, whether it's in your home, some people love tapes. Some people, one woman, she said, I have the Wii Fit, and I absolutely love it. And I said, well, why did you stop doing it? And she said, I don't know, I just kind of got away from it. And I said, well, get back into it again. She said it was great because they would weigh you, and they had all these programs, and it would give you these little things of encouragement. And so I said, whatever works for you, you have to do that. Whether it's swimming or a program or just doing something on your own, something that you should do daily. And if you're not doing it now, it should be small, starting at 5-10 minutes, and then work your way into it. And if it's someone who's heavier, don't start out with a lot of health issues too, just full force, because obviously, or if you have physical therapy issues that you need to address, you need to talk to a physical therapist or your doctor first to see what would be the best. One woman was recommended by someone to do the bicycle, and she had some issues with her back, and so another person said, a polarity therapist was saying, no, that's completely opposite of what I need to be doing, because that's going to torque your back even worse. So she needs to find the right type of exercise for her. Don't do a rower if that's something that's going to be bothering your back. I also recommend, if you do go to the gym, to take advantage of having someone walk you through the first few times to show you how to use machines properly. Some places actually do that right off the bat. But you don't want to obviously injure yourself because you're using them improperly. So I actually was doing some physical therapy for my knee, and I continued at that place because I liked the fact that if I had a question for them of a certain form that I was doing something, they would correct me, which was very, very helpful. So these are some of the things, some of the actual studies that are out there backing why you would want to continue with exercising. The first one is inflammation, which is one of the biggest reasons why we're here talking about. The moderate activity had been shown to decrease lab values that are markers of inflammation over time. And I actually printed this one out. And they looked at the association between activity and physical markers over a 10-year follow-up period. Participants were 4,289 men and women. Mean age was 49.2 years old. And they checked the CRP, which is your C-reactive protein, of inflammatory marker in the body. They were measured at baseline in 1991 and follow-up in 2002. And 2.5 hours per week, moderate to vigorous physical activity. Physically active participants at baseline had lower CRP and interleukin-6, which is another dealing with your immune system, levels. And this difference remains stable over time. So they found that regular physical activity is associated with lower markers of inflammation over 10-year follow-up, and thus may be important in preventing the pro-inflammatory state seen with aging. So the cellular aging one, an article January 2010 found that they actually explored the research on how regular activity may slow down cellular aging. Obviously you have to be careful because too extreme activity can create too many free radicals and lactic acid and acidity in the body. So keeping it a moderate type of activity. Cognitive health also. In the Journal of Gerontology looked at the role of aerobic exercise in maintaining cognitive health. Significant increases in brain volume were found in older adults who engaged in aerobic exercise. So in that one, they looked at 59 healthy but sedentary community dwelling volunteers aged 60 to 79. They participated in the 6-month randomized clinical trial. And they found that significant increases in brain volume in both gray and white matter regions were found as a function of fitness training for the older adults who participated in the aerobic fitness training, but not for the older adults who participated in the stretching and toning, which is the non-aerobic control group. As predicted, no significant changes in either gray or white matter volume were detected in the younger participants, so it was mainly for the older. So that's more of an drive to not sort of, people tend, when they retire, they sort of downshift. This is a time when you need to sort of bring it up a notch, so to speak. So, so let's get into the video.
Physical activity is an essential component of a healthy lifestyle. I think it's important to move the body every day, but it's also important to move the body in the right ways. Doing it too little, doing it too much can both be harmful. I think it's also important to adapt forms of exercise to the changes in your body as you move through life. Movement is very important for joint health because when you move your joints in the right way, this actually helps lubricate the joints. So joint problems become quite common in people in middle age and older, and it's something that we all need to think about to know how to move our bodies in the appropriate ways.
Okay, so what they use, the old ways of thinking for arthritis is, hold it, splint it, don't exercise it, but now they're saying you need to move it or lose it, so to get the fluid, as he was saying, into the joints. So obviously you have to be careful with any restrictions that you have, but what are some of the types of activity that you would think are the ones that are the most sustainable long-term, like, from say your 20s into your 80s, 90s? Swimming, perfect. Walking, skiing, if, to the point, some people with their knees and hips, but definitely, or cross-country skiing, yep. How about anybody snowshoe? Snowshoeing is great. I think what you were saying with, what's it called again? Payo, which is Pilates, yoga, Payo. I think that's phenomenal. Yes, the core is huge. Oh. Oh. Oh, okay. Phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Yep. Yep. Right. And that's a big point, like you ladies were talking about the core. I mean, you're going to get the core worked out actually from skiing as well as cross-country skiing and doing walking as well as snowshoeing. One of the reasons why I started running was I had a bone density taken when I was in my 30s, and they thought that I was osteopenic, which was weird because I grew up on a farm and I had, just didn't make sense. So they didn't know what to do with me, and they did all these tests, and basically it came back, well, we think you may have grown up just with a low bone store. Go on and live your life. So, but the one doctor had told me, he said, well, you need to get back into doing some weight-bearing exercise, so start running again. So I did, and then I ended up not doing all my appropriate stretches anymore on the tree because I would rush to get back to my daughter or it was cold, and so I overworked my quadriceps. Because I was just repetitive motion, same big, large muscle groups. And so what I did was I pulled my knee off of its track. So when it was going over, just sliding, it was going like this. It was grinding, so it ground away cartilage back in there. So I was getting radiating pain around the kneecap. So obviously you want to do things where you're going to be using all sorts of different muscle groups. When I was training for triathlons, which I'm going to be doing one again this year, it was doing the swimming, biking, running, which is great because I was doing all the different muscle groups. And I think changing up the activity is wonderful too. And the core is so important. I used to have a bad back where I would get a lot of muscle spasms. And when I started running, I remember I'd run and I would sort of go like this and I would feel the muscles that were tightening up as I was running. And you'll feel that even when you're walking or doing other exercises. And so it was strengthening my core and my glutes and my hamstrings and my quadriceps, all those helper muscles there. So my back spasms, I don't really have them anymore, or back pain. And the core is what supports you here. A lot of people, when they gain weight in the abdomen and then they start to sway back, that's when a lot of problems start happening. So, Tai Chi. Where is that through? Onondaga Parkway? Tai Chi there. That's what I was. Is that Genoa that works here? Genoa that works here works with arthritis, and she does Tai Chi. Oh, okay. Maybe it's another. There are. Those are things that you can carry throughout. Cycling, maybe another one. I know I work with a lot of the Onondaga cycling and skiing group and whatnot, and some of those people are in their mid-70s, so they do a lot of, some of these people that do 40-mile treks like nothing. So cycling is another one too. It's good. That was great for me, which I was surprised when I got on the bicycle after my physical therapy. I said, wow, my knee doesn't hurt. And they said, yes, this is actually better for you than running. And actually for women with running, the way that we were made, our hips are wider and the knees typically go in, so it's naturally going to throw off, so it's really not a beneficial activity for us. So right now I do cycling. Yep, and I just had someone in the last class give me one of those stands so I can do it inside and bring it in, and I also have cross-country skis, which I haven't used yet this year, which I should, but I have snowshoes as well. So, okay, so as far as nutrition, basically Dr. Andrew Weil really likes looking at a combination of the traditional Japanese diet and the Mediterranean. Now, the Mediterranean used to be like the one that everybody said, this is the greatest, we should eat more like that. But he actually morphs in a little bit more of the benefits that they found with the Japanese Okinawan diet, because they found that they're the ones that have the most centenarians in the world. So they started looking at what is it. But it's not just their diet, we know that. It's everything, right? It's mind, body, spirit across the board. You cannot look at, one of the things I asked in the Spontaneous Happiness Workshop, how important do you think that stress reduction and doing exercise and these things like meditation and yoga is, as well as community activities and community where you're out doing things with friends and family and having a good time? Is that as important as diet and supplements? Yeah, that can be sometimes even more so. If you're just putting your head down, nose to the grindstone, and which I have done, it's no fun. I mean, when I started getting together with some of my girlfriends after Christmas, I laughed so hard I was crying, and I left there, and I just felt wonderful. I said, I have to keep doing stuff like this. So that's really important, the community spirit. That's why they like these workshops as well, because it's engaging. And when we did the 4-week one, a lot of people actually made friends throughout those, so that was pretty fun. But that's very important, not just diet. So diet is a piece of it, and basically both of those are noted to be beneficial because of their favorable omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory, to the omega-6, which can be pro-inflammatory, to also the amount of fish and the vegetables, and excluding a lot of your refined, processed, pesticide-laden, minimal amounts of meat as well in the diet. So he has a little, we'll listen to what he says on his video about that.
We all know inflammation on the surface of the body is local heat, redness, swelling, and pain at an area that's injured or under attack. And inflammation is actually the way that the body gets more nourishment and more immune activity to an area that needs it. It's the cornerstone of the body's healing response. But inflammation is so powerful and it's so potentially destructive that it's very important that it stays where it's supposed to stay and end when it's supposed to end. If inflammation serves no purpose, it becomes productive of disease. There are many influences on your inflammatory status, but the mainstream diet in our culture is strongly pro-inflammatory. It gives you the wrong kinds of fats, the wrong kinds of carbohydrates, and not enough of all the elements mostly found in fruits, vegetables, herbs, and spices that protect us from the consequences of inflammation. I developed my anti-inflammatory diet and anti-inflammatory diet pyramid to help guide people to better food choices, to enhance health, to maximize longevity and reduce disease risks. I used the Mediterranean diet as a template for my anti-inflammatory diet and pyramid, but I added Asian influences to it and tweaked it to make it even more powerful at containing inappropriate inflammation. Some foods from my pyramid that are particularly great for inflammation are berries. Berries are wonderful foods. They are low in glycemic load, they're tasty, they're delicious, and they're packed with protective phytonutrients in the pigments they contain that help protect tissues from the consequences of inflammation. Also, ginger, which we have here, is one of the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory agents. It's good to include that in your diet as often as possible. And here we have some mushrooms. These are shiitake mushrooms and maitake mushrooms. Many of these Asian mushrooms that are now appearing in our markets have very significant protective effects. They enhance immunity, they help protect us from infection, they reduce cancer risks. Shiitake mushrooms have cholesterol-lowering properties. It's good to include these in the diet. It is desirable to eat across the color spectrum of foods every day, to think about where you got your green food, where you got your red food, what did you eat today that was orange, what did you eat that was blue. Each of these different segments of the color spectrum in plants have particular phytonutrients and particular protective qualities, and you want to get a mix of them. Eat a rainbow mix of foods every day.
All right. So you have in your little packet there, I'll put up PowerPoint, the pyramid. Okay. This is what the pyramid looks like. That's what's in your book. Combination of things, and I'll get back to that in a minute, but I first want to talk about with the Okinawans. I looked this up because I wasn't sure of everything that they ate. So with the Okinawans, they found that the Japanese residents on the island of Okinawa may contribute to a lower risk of cancer, heart disease, and all age-related diseases that may extend the lifespan. And that was a 2009 study published by the Journal of American College of Nutrition. They typically consume 500 calories per, cut it off, less than people following Western diets. Their meals include foods high in vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, but low in saturated fat, and lower on the glycemic index, which is the rating of the sugar content of the foods. So typically, they are high in eating sweet, let's see, it says stir-fried tofu, a native Okinawan sweet potato that's rich with vitamin E. They eat a lot of seafood. They add tofu to their salads. They eat miso, a lot of steamed vegetables, fresh fruit, things along that line. Let me see if this other one has some different things. So it's low in calories and fat, high in complex carbs. Most of the carbohydrates come from vegetables with only a small amount of grains or seeds, no sugar and refined sweets. There's only a little red meat and a minimal amount of dairy. Fish is consumed in moderation, and alcohol consumption is limited to an occasional drink. Versus when you're looking at the Mediterranean, which typically at the top of the food pyramid, there are grains, fresh fruits, vegetables, olive oil, cheeses, yogurt, nut, legumes, all of which are consumed on a daily basis. And the foods eaten on a weekly basis are fish, seafood, poultry, eggs, and sweets. They consume red meat less often on a monthly basis, and red wine about 1 to 2 glasses per day. So it's mostly fruits and vegetables, fish, whole grain, and limited unhealthy fats. They consume healthy fats such as olive oil, small portion of nuts, walnuts, pecans, almonds. I think that's about it. So he kind of melds these together into this, which last time I had a lot of people ask me about, seems like a lot of food when they tried to incorporate this, and it's basically, just as he said, it's a template of trying to get yourself more towards these guidelines. When I looked up, you can actually go onto his website and get the pyramid, and then you can click on all the different sections, and it'll give you examples. Some people had asked me, what about bread? Where does bread fall? Well, that was considered a refined, same as, the pasta, he only said it to be a whole grain. He didn't even say anything about whole grain breads at all. So only 2 to 3 times a week of pasta al dente, because it's going to make it lower in the glycemic index. It takes longer for the body to break it down. But grains actually are, what's that? Right, they do produce energy, which you do need. However, they're saying get it more from the carbs from the fruits and vegetables than grains. Yeah, that is a lot, honestly. But when the serving is, well, honestly, it's a lot, but it's not, right, because when I ask people what do they have for dinner, they'll say, oh, I have a couple cups of pasta. That's actually 4 servings right there of your grain. So that would be for the whole day. So there's no other bread, no other anything else. What's that? Gluten-free, what did you say, the whole grain? Exactly. And that's one of the things they say, modify it if you have to have things gluten-free, because typically, quinoa is a whole grain. Brown rice is a whole grain, raised on there. Yes, by itself. So, and those are all gluten-free. Millet, amaranth, teff, those are all gluten-free grains that you can have. It's just not, they don't want it to be pulverized, because the more pulverized you get, the more the body will just bring it in, instant energy, and if you don't use it up, your body stores it for fat for later. So that's why it's actually longer it takes to break down fruits and vegetables, because their fructose has to be broken down into glucose and sucrose and then be absorbed, versus the others, which the grains are very easily assimilated in the body. Right. And that wasn't addressed on there as well. And I would look at it more as like how you would look at pasta, honestly, as a product. Yeah. Where does it say? Oh, in the cracked. Right. I remember looking at this a few weeks ago, and so I don't remember all of them, but I know they said if you're gluten-free, obviously, to adapt it. He didn't really address breads. It's, kind of use your judgment on that as well. If you want to have sprouted bread, you can have sprouted bread. Again, it's just his guidelines here. Like look at soy, for instance. I disagree with soy milk and soy nuts, personally. And soy, because they're not fermented, in the countries that eat a lot of soy, it's typically usually fermented. And tofu, on some aspects, are considered fermented, and some say it's not fermented. Because the bioavailability of the isoflavones in the soy, which is the health benefits that you want for the bone building and the hormone balancing, only come when it's fermented, when it cleaves that off of the carbohydrate molecule. Dairy is under the other choices of protein next to eggs. Natural cheeses, yogurt, what is it, omega-3s? Okay, skinless poultry, something else, lean meats, right. Right, and it doesn't have any, right. Well, I use almond milk, personally, unsweetened almond milk. It's a fermented soy. You can have it. They have it in soups, and you can add it to other things. Right, like we have little packets that you can buy of miso to make a soup, and it's a paste that you can put into other things to add flavoring. Right. Mhm. Right. Right. I'm not sure. You can. Okay. Right. Soy has the phytoestrogens, but it's typically not bioavailable to the body unless it's fermented. Because it is that Christina, she red hair? Red pearl, yes. The only way I would do it is organic. Mhm. Good. Excellent. And she's big with the macrobiotic and whatnot. Right. So thank you. Any other questions or comments on this? More beneficial or as? I guess it would depend on, and I'm not a wine connoisseur, I don't drink wine. And they say don't drink it if you don't start because of this, but I'm not sure on that. Typically, like you said, it's the anthocyanins that come in from the pigment, but there may be more because they're always finding more and more. I'm always reading more on, well, this was okay, but now then there's this, so there's always something new. Right, right. Right. Mm. Right, right. I know. Everybody has their different. Well, that's, looking at the Mediterranean aspect. Because they were saying but again, I mean, I'm not a wine drinker, and I'm not going to just start because of that. So I would take more of something else, like eating more of my berries, and try to get my nutrients that way. Exactly. They're also high on smoke. I lived over there for a while. Right, and that's another thing. A lot of people that have gluten problems over here that are not celiac, I must say, but have gluten issues, intolerances, and have gone over to Europe and eaten the breads and pastas, don't have the problem typically. Well, that's the thing. They don't allow the GMOs or the preservatives. There's a lot that go into that. Yep. Mhm. Big difference. See that? And that's not even gluten free. So it's yep. So it depends on more. Right. Mhm. Mhm. So a lot of people. Right. Good. Good. Well, and that's one of the things that I should add in here, and thank you for all of you for pointing out the gluten aspect. When a lot of people that I have that have issues with autoimmune or inflammatory issues, I tell them to stay away from gluten because it's very inflammatory in the body. Gluten means glue in Latin, and the body just starts attacking it, and it causes more inflammation in the body. So I had one girl in, and she stayed away from gluten for one reason, and came back and said, well, it didn't help this, but she said, any of the sore and pain and aching that I had in my muscles and joints, she said, they stopped. So a lot of people will stay away from it for typical issues of, I personally have had GI issues over the years, and once I got away from gluten, they cleared up. But I also have to eat lower carbohydrate, mainly lower grains carbohydrates, because they cause, in my body, it's just more of a sludge, and I don't digest it well. Some people have more inflammation systemically, joints and muscles. So that's one of the reasons why other people tend to go more gluten-free. But you have to be careful, because some of those products will put more sugars and whatnot in them too. Shiitake and maitake. Mhm. Right, and that's one of the things that. What's GMO? Mhm. I know. So doing it your own. Right. Right, and that's a good point, because when I started looking at GMOs as well as organic as well as gluten-free, I was finding not a lot of the products were meshing. So you have to look at a lot of them. Now they're using a lot of different grains, like they'll use brown rice, or they'll be using the garbanzo beans or coconut. They're using all sorts of different things out there now, because it was typically rice and corn, and some of them rice, corn, potatoes. So they're getting away from that more, because there's more of a demand now. Right. Soy, nuts, top allergens. Right. Well, usually Doris Rapp, who was one of the top allergens in the U.S., and she's more alternative, she actually says take the food away for about a week. Right. And then add it in on the 8th day and see how you do for Doris Rapp. R-A-P-P, yep. Yep. Yes, and she's right. Did you have another question? They're really, yeah, I went to a conference out, actually it was his conference when I first got out of grad school in Arizona, and there was a guy who actually now used to sell his mushrooms to New Chapter, and then the contract was over and ended, and now he has his own line out there called the Mycommunity, whatever, I forget the name, but it's out there. And his name is Paul Stamets. And he said, don't even bother having any of those ones that are the white little button. He said they have, like, no value. And so he was good, but not the right. These are the medicinal ones that they found so many different health properties with. Oh, good. Good. Excellent. Help with inflammation. Oh, well, you should try the right. I mean, it's a whole combination of things, because we're talking about. You can saute it. Right. Well, you don't want. Low temperature. Cook. Yeah, saute them. Right. Yes, they said not to really have it raw. He said to have it cooked. It's still high in rice. The question was the status of arsenic in the rice, whether it's organic or brown rice or white. It is high. It does naturally pull a lot of arsenic, more so they're finding than tap water would have. So for people that are celiac, this was actually brought to me by one woman who was celiac, and over the years everything was brown rice, this and that, and so you definitely need to use the alternative sources and not just do a lot of rice. Say if you're going to have half a cup of rice one day, then you would want to have other grains like your quinoa or the amaranth or things like that to vary them. Just like we said, everything in balance. If you don't eat in balance, you don't think in balance, you don't do in balance, like the environment out there, when Mother Nature isn't in balance, it'll wipe you right back into to try to achieve balance. So definitely vary it, just like anything else with exercise too. It's a good one for very high temperature cooking. It's great because it has, even though it's saturated, before they used to get a bad rap, like with the palm oils, because it was a hydrogenated, but if you have it from the original virgin state, it's good. Now even Dr. Oz is out there touting it for dementia prevention and Alzheimer's because it's great with the fatty acids for the brain. It actually does help give you more lauric acid, which is a natural antiviral and bacterial in there as well. We have it in all of our skincare line, almost all of the lines out there for hair, skin, and whatnot. So it's beneficial all around. Some people have had a concern, they've said, with cholesterol issues. Really hasn't been seen as an issue. It helps. It has more of the medium chain triglycerides that help speed your metabolism up. Some have had it help with their thyroid, if they had a hypothyroid. I'm not going to say that's the only thing, but so it's beneficial, and I kind of vary my oils. I'll use olive, I'll use macadamia nut, which is another high cooking oil. The profile of that's more along the lines of the olive oil, more monounsaturated fats. And then I vary it, and I also use coconut. Like when I'm making my eggs, sometimes I'll use the coconut oil. So that's different, good, has all benefits, but not the oil aspect of it. It's got a lot of electrolytes in there, helps out with balancing. It's still got the antiviral, bacterial properties. So with someone people I've worked with H. pylori, which is an overgrowth of the bacteria in the gut, in the stomach, I'll usually recommend something like that, or if they need more electrolytes, go to something like that. So the milk and the water have that. Okay. So great conversation on that. So like I said, it's just a kind of a guideline. You don't have to follow it all, but maybe to start looking at, hey, maybe I should have a little bit more of this or a little bit less of this or add in a little more. I know I've been really slacking on my tea. Normally during the winter I'll have this green pomegranate tea. Well, I've been doing my Ticino like the whole time through. So I haven't had any of my green tea. So the spices too, cinnamon, turmeric, ginger, garlic, all great for anti-inflammatory, viral. Cinnamon's great for digestion. So you'll find these in smatterings throughout different products, especially when it's dealing with inflammation. Cinnamon, a lot of people will put it if they're having some sprouted toast or whatnot. What I've done before is I've put coconut oil on top and then put cinnamon. Or some people put it in their teas, which it doesn't really go in very well. Oh, there you go, the essential oil. Yep. Some people have reactions harsher on the stomach, so you just have to be careful. I have had a few people. Yep, it's bothered them. I know. You don't. I can never say never for anything now because I've had so many. Right. Yeah. It's different. I've had a guy that said, I really have an allergy to it. I break out in my stomach. And so. Definitely, but yeah. Right. Which I will mention, right, Young Living, which we do carry here, there are specific ones that can be taken internally, but not all. You're right. Say that you can or can't? Yeah, oh yes, those I never, we only usually go towards the Young Living for anything internal. Yep, good point. So, we already talked a little bit about this. So the pigments he talked about, well, this, minimum of 4 to 5 servings of vegetables a day. If you do a smoothie, or anybody that does juicing, that's a great way that you can get that in. If you have a yogurt, you can add those in as well. For the vegetables, I find it's really simple. Nighttime, say you're doing a stew or just on the side, and lunch almost every day I have salads, so I get my greens in. Even through the winter, I've been eating salads. I don't know why, I've just been craving them. So it's good because that helps me get my veggies in. So the anthocyanins are the reds and the purples. Okay, these are actually developed within the plant, and as it talks about on the right-hand side, the stress, the environmental stress, produces the anthocyanins. So stress, again, can be a good thing. We do need to have stress for certain things, and so do plants, because it creates it for a protectant. Okay, those are where the antioxidants are within the plant. So include the berries, cherries, blueberries, blackberries. The darker the color of the plant or the fruit or the vegetable is more color, has more of the nutrients in there. So try not to take the skins off. If the apple is red, eat the skin. And by the way, I must say, with apples, they're the most pesticide-laden fruits, so you need to have those most particularly organic. And you can find the list for the Dirty Dozen, which are the most pesticide-laden fruits and vegetables, on the EWG.org. That's environmentalworkinggroup.org. You can click on, they're going to have all sorts of boxes on their first frame, and you can click on where it says the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So you'd want to follow those rules because they've tested. And they even tested them after they were washed, and washing doesn't take the pesticides out. And they did found that pesticides, if they don't, bless you, don't do anything else other than the fact that they found that they did agree that they do cause disruptions in the immune system. And where do diseases start? With disruptions in the immune system. So try to stay away from those and the GMOs as much as possible too. So, yes. Oh, yeah. Maki and all the other, yep. Well, it depends on, if you look to see, there's no RDA for sugar out there. They say 40 grams a day, which is actually 10 teaspoons. 4 grams is 1 teaspoon. Not all sugar is the same as far as digested in the body, but juices definitely, because it doesn't have the pectin and the fibers and whatnot to slow the release in the system. I mean, it's good, but you also have to look at, you want to have some other things to decrease the amount of the rush of the sugar in the body. So that's, like I said, fibers. I did have one woman who was doing a lot of juicing, and her blood sugar was progressively going up. She was becoming pre-diabetic. And so we looked at that, and the doctor looked at that and said, wow, you should just do 1 fruit per like 3 or 4 greens. So that's what she was doing, instead of she was doing a lot more fruits and just maybe 1 green in there. So slows, yes, that's called the glycemic load. They started looking at that versus the index, which is a single food by itself. When they looked at the load, they looked at, okay, what are all the other things that are coming into your diet? Like fats, slow the release. Fibers, slow the release. So you want to have more of those incorporated as a mixed meal, so you don't have blood sugar spikes like that. Pulp in the orange juice helps, but it slows down the release, definitely. I still find that orange juice is very sugary, but yes, it does slow it down. I usually put in, like, if I don't drink it anymore, I haven't for years, but when I would do that, I'd put like just a little bit of the juice and then the rest water myself, just to get the flavor. Did you have a question? 40 grams is what they say don't go over, and if you look at that, in the equivalence of it's 1 can of soda. So people that are, they amaze me when they drink like 4 or 5 cans a day, and then they have other stuff on top of it. Right. So the Greek yogurts are better when you look at the profile of having, you know, a little bit of fat. You don't want to go totally fat-free because, especially with the dairy, they found that the organic dairy, the benefits came in from the fats for the anti-inflammatory aspect of it. So go more 2%. Really? Yeah. Stony. Oikos? Is it Oikos? What's right? Yep. You definitely want to have, when you're looking at dairy, organic, some fat in there, more protein, and lower on the natural sugars, which the Greeks typically have about 20 grams of sugar naturally in there, or less, some of them, depending on. In a day? So, well, typically they say for the day, it varies. Some say to eat like 40 grams a day. So if you're going to have a Greek yogurt, you can have a small handful of walnuts, or the release of, not of the, no, I don't think so, not of the calcium, no. If you're worried about that, you can put some D drops in there too. Have it with that, it'd help. Fat. Right, everything all together. Right. Okay, so the carotenoids, those are your oranges and yellows. So these will come from mangoes, carrots, sweet potatoes. Also curcumin, which is the powerful carotenoid that's found in turmeric. This is great for inflammation. Also, turmeric is very great along with green tea and rosemary to help the liver in the detox pathways too. So the thing about turmeric too is you need to have a fatty substance to bring it into the cells much better. So usually they're putting it in with products like phosphatidylserine, or in these products here by Megfood, they put in a bioperine, which is a black pepper extract, to get it into the cells more effectively. So because by itself apparently it doesn't get in very well. So looking at lutein and zeaxanthin, also they're carotenoids that are found in your dark green leafies, such as kale, which is great. That's a low oxalate one. If someone has to watch for their stones, for kidney stones. Kale is great. It has a lot of nutrients in there, and some people do a lot of juicing with that. And our salads we have out here are great if you've ever had the kale salad. Someone had their hand up for a question. Right, they are. They're more of the higher glycemic index. What's that? They well, even if you look at sweet potatoes, they are too, because they're considered more starchy, like your corn, so they're more of a starch. But the thing is when they looked at carrots, when they first originally said, oh, no, carrots are awful, because they were only looking at the carrots. When they looked at carrots compared to, say, a Snickers bar, they found that carrots had a higher glycemic index, which would make sense because of what's in a Snickers bar. Fat from the nuts and whatnot. So when they looked at the grams of carbohydrates, so 50 grams of carbs from a carrot to another 50 grams of carbs from the Snickers bar, you had to have 3.5 cups of those carrots to equal that Snickers bar. So, you know, in perspective again, and if you had the carrots with some other vegetables, like some other broccoli, and say you were dipping it in hummus or something like that, the hummus also with the chickpea and the fat in there was going to slow the release too. So there you go. So, yep. Yes, it is a lot. No one would sit down and I don't know anybody that would sit and eat 3.5 cups of carrots. So that's a lot too. It's a lot of sugar right there, or a lot to eat as well. Yeah, that's the thing. Well, as long as, yes, and anything else? Okay. So, I mean, typically that's going to balance out, and if you don't have any blood sugar problems, if someone did, I would say you got to cut that down. But even for some of the treatments that they have with cancer, and the base of it's carrots. And so, but obviously you have to monitor because everything it's different for everyone. So I may say it's okay for this person, but not for this person. So, so going on to the supplements, and this is our last piece. Apart from providing insurance against gaps in the diet, Dr. Andrew Weil said supplements can provide optimum dosages of natural therapeutic agents that may help prevent and treat age-related diseases. So there are going to be a lot. I'll go into the video. This is the last part of the video, and then we'll just have from there.
I take a daily multivitamin, multimineral supplement. I grow a lot of my own food. I shop very carefully. I cook for myself. And I take a daily multivitamin, multimineral as insurance against gaps in my diet. For one reason or another, I don't get the sources of micronutrients and phytonutrients that we need every day. That's mostly fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices, for instance. And we really do need these nutritional elements every day. So I think getting them in the right dose and right forms is critical. Multivitamins are not substitutes for whole foods that contain them, and taking a supplement like that doesn't excuse you from eating a good diet. But as I say, I think they're useful as insurance against gaps in the diet. Thank you for joining us today. Wishing you success and good luck on your journey.
Okay. So, back up. There have been a lot of talk out in the media about whether you need a multivitamin mineral or not, but they also were looking at ones that didn't have the right forms for absorbability, the right amounts that were needed for someone who may have a heart issue. They only put, of CoQ10, it might be 5 milligrams in there where you need about 200. So it really does look at who's backing the studies on this. The thing that I love about the whole food companies is that they're actually looking at taking a vitamin C and they mix it in with the vitamin C coming from foods that are very rich in vitamin C. So it's getting the whole aspect. I remember going to one workshop where they put all the benefits and the compounds that are found within broccoli on one of these screens, like in tiny, tiny words all up and down in columns. All the things that were in there, and there were still things that hadn't been discovered that were beneficial in the broccoli. So when you're looking at vitamin C, instead of taking vitamin C in an isolated form, 500, 1,000, looking at taking it from something of a food state, which would be something like parsley, you'll have to take much less of it because all of the helper nutrients that pull it into the cells versus just isolating. Now, isolating is good on some aspects for people where we have to really push in a lot of one nutrient, but typically overall we want to get it from the food sources because nature knows better than we do with all the things that help to pull it in. It's not just vitamin C and parsley, it's a whole ton of other things that are in there. So definitely, like you said, you want to do food first, and then supplements are, as the word is, supplementing it into the diet. Some of the frequently asked questions: what's the difference between different multivitamins? And as I said before, there are benefits for taking the whole foods. For example, the well-known vitamin C, did you know that oranges contain more than 170 phytonutrients? So when you take C delivered through oranges, you can gain access to the benefits of the whole orange. One part is not effective as the whole. So you're getting the whole combination from that. And what MegaFoods does is it's different from other companies, but you can actually see the foods coming through, and they press it into this like a fruit roll-up, large roll-up, and that's how they make their supplements. So it's very interesting how the processing is done, and it's very minimal heat, if any, so not to damage the nutrients. Now, getting into the ones that help with the inflammation. We already talked a little bit about turmeric, how powerful that is. This actually is in the ginger family, which it looks a lot like ginger, just with the bright orange color. It's been used in India for thousands of years. It's an important Ayurvedic Indian medicine. Again, the curcumin is the most bioavailable active constituent that they've found, and most of the studies have been on that. And as I spoke about, some companies use the bioperine to help pull it into the cells more effectively. Other companies I know use phosphatidyl, I can't remember if it's choline or serine, a fat soluble, to get it pulled into the cells. So you'll find turmeric in a lot of, by itself or in a lot of other formulations to help out with inflammation. Yeah. It's listed usually right along with it in it. So it's in other formulas, not just with turmeric, but I used to work for a company that had a vitamin C product, and it had the bioperine in there to help open up all these other pathways for the body for it to be pulled into the cells. So not just by itself that I know of, no. It's usually in a synergistic form with something else. Holy basil. Now this covers two different areas, and I love holy basil. Anybody take holy basil? I love. Yes, Tulsi tea is holy basil. Tulsi, Tulsi, Tulsi tea is holy basil, and holy basil I take myself, and I have had it's in a lot of adrenal formulas for stress and to help with the body's responding to stress. It's very interesting. I saw some research on it too, that it's looked at with a lot of antioxidants in there for anti-aging as well. Now this is one of the main ones that I get a lot of my clients on when we're dealing with a lot of stress coming in. I usually have them on extra C and magnesium, and then I look at other formulations like by itself, holy basil, or in combination for an adrenal formula. Now they do have it in their adrenal health product, and like I said, it's just absolutely phenomenal. What it does is it just helps balance. It's an Ayurvedic herb that is considered an adaptogen, just like ginseng, ashwagandha, schizandra, rhodiola. What they do in the body is they help with whatever hormones are running too low, say it's progesterone, testosterone, your thyroid hormones, whatever. It brings it up, and whatever is running too high, say estrogen, cortisol, it brings it down. So they balance. So basically I have people that come back and say, really? Is this what's doing it? And I said, yes, that actually just helps balance. I had one guy who normally is very calm. He laughs things off, but he also works in construction with a lot of other guys, and he said typically the guys are like stressed, just like smoking and drinking coffee and yelling at each other, and he's not that way at all. He likes to cook his good food, and he takes yoga, and he said, all right, I'm going to be going out, and I'm going to be dealing with these guys for a job for months. He said, and I need something. And I said, all right, well, we already had him on magnesium because he had high blood pressure, and we got him off his blood pressure meds with a variety of different things. So I said, why don't we just add this in? Just try it. So I gave him, I had some samples on hand. I said, just try it and come back and let me know. And he came back and he said, really? He said, I was standing there just flagging people by and just like, no problem, no. And I said, yeah, what it really does is it just creates that sense of centeredness, and that things can come your way, and it's not going to rock you so hard that you can't just come back to center and get through it okay. And that's how I can explain it. It's not like, say, when you have alcohol and you feel that down from the alcohol. It's not anything like that. It just creates that centered feeling. So, no, actually, he had it in a concentrated form, in a concentrated capsule. Right. So, no, actually, yeah, he didn't drink the tea at all. But some people like the Tulsi. That's the main thing is holy basil. Yep, that's what it is. And it's, what's that? Tulsi. Si, yeah. And it's called holy basil because it's grown around the temples, as it says here, and it's very revered. Oh. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I love it. I just love the whole thing. To me just resonates, and I have a lot of people on it. No, that's perfectly fine. You can do that. It lowers blood sugar levels as well, so if someone is a diabetic as well as stressed, that's one of the ones I would put them on and have them watch their blood sugar levels. So this one helps out in the ways of inflammation, also crossing over into the stressors, which helps decrease inflammation as well. So some of the other ones, well, I'm going to talk about first. Well, I guess they won't. So obviously you're here because inflammation is a concern to you. And when we look at a lot of the roots of diseases, it is inflammation, okay? So does anybody do anything right now if they want to share some of the things that have helped them? Because there's, like I said, a lot of things out there that I have a lot of people take. Go. Right, right. Good. Mhm. Mhm. Oh, thank you. And I didn't tell her to say that. Thank you. Well, and that is what I do. I mean, why would you want to be taking things at the wrong times, or with some are between meals, some would not be recommended to take next to others? I look at your scripts to make sure that this might be depleting this, so you need to take that a few hours away from that. And so that's, thank you. That is one of the main things that I do as well. So if anybody is interested, again, I can do that and work through those for you. So I'm glad you're doing well. Right, I know. Yes, it is. Yep. It's the inflammation going around the, yes, exactly, the tendon around the nerve. But that's also more of mechanical as well as dealing with systemic inflammation too. So everything will affect everything though. Right. Well, I did have one woman that she got off gluten, and I don't know if you've been gluten-free or not, but that was one thing that she got off of, and that really did help her for her inflammation with her carpal tunnel. So you're welcome. You had a question? Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Yep, right in front. Right. Right. Well, I think it's, well, the other ones, typically they'll have a whole smattering of herbs like ashwagandha, schizandra, and whatnot, and they are great. I've taken both. It really depends person to person, because I found that just taking some by themselves really are more effective. Some others, not so. And honestly, even with me taking magnesium, I took that for months and months, and I really needed it. And I've been away from it for a while, and I don't feel like I need it. So I try to listen to my body and what I'm needing and not needing. Not just blanketly saying, oh, this is what I'm on for the long haul. You may or may not need certain things at certain times, so then you might bring it back in. So just kind of see. You could try a concentrated one and see how you do for the month, and then compare it. Back there, you had a question. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Like I said, when you have inflammatory foods coming in, as well as stressors and all sorts of other stuff, that just puts, gasoline onto the fire, so to speak. Well, you can try, like I said, there's that sample of the extinguish there, which I tried one day, and we had other people try it, just with some samples, and they felt a big difference after taking that. So we've got that and numerous other things, so we could kind of work with you on what you need, what you're looking for. Okay. You have. Well, with February being Heart Month, we didn't want to just do all heart stuff. We were trying to look at inflammation in general. That's more on alkalizing, but it's related into the inflammatory aspect of it. And so a lot of people, we come in and tell them about alkalizing and give them a chart and try to figure out how to alkalize, but they don't. More acidic, which creates more inflammation in the body. So, exactly, that's exactly it. Because then a lot of people don't know how to cook and eat more like that, so that's why we developed that, and Deborah was going to show people, because she's doing the diet herself, and so she wanted to talk about it. So yeah, it's just an add-on. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Excellent. Yes. We used to carry emu oil. I don't know if we do anymore. A lot of people like that. I know that Tramil is another great one I keep on hand, which has arnica and other things in there for inflammation. But you were saying adding in the curcumin helps just bring it down even more a notch? Yes. Fabulous. Thank you. Well, that would be next Tuesday. Yes. That would be, what's that? That will be taped as well, yes. And so that's more of like, your sugars and the oils that can go rancid, and yes, so I'll talk more about those then. Yeah. Yes. Some do. Oh, go ahead. Comment. In the right. 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 Thank you. The liver can lag as far as getting the toxins out, as well as your body gets used to and adapted to a certain amount of sugar. So if anybody's ever gone, really low in their sugars or carbohydrates, I know for about a week or two, I had these really bad headaches. I was just kind of fuzzy, foggy, and so your body is trying to come down and get adapted off of that. So if it sustains longer, again, you can come in and talk to me about that. But yes, there can be that. Even when we're dealing with detoxes of any sort, there's usually a reaction of some sort. Yes, as soon as you come out, it's right along the T's on the bottom. There's all different flavors, decaf or caffeinated. Some people drink like 2 a day. Yep. And you can have that in with, say, you take the supplement, say, in the morning, and then you take the Tulsi afternoon and evening, because there's also a Tulsi chamomile, so you could take that towards evening time. Diabetic for what? Well, it does bring down your sugar levels, so you would let them know. It's not like it's going to drop it, severely. Yes, but still let them know. Sure. So this is the last ones that we're talking about, the ashwagandha and the erythro, which is the ginseng. Some people tolerate it, some don't, but they do help with the healthy stress response, just like the holy basil, and these typically you will find in the adrenal formulas. And these are the adaptogens as well, the ones that balance, just like Tulsi. So now from here, you can take, and it's probably in your booklets, there's the My Personal Balancing Fire Plan. So there's different things that you can look at. You can look at lifestyle. Say you need to incorporate more of your breathing, maybe a yoga class, meditating for starting with a minute and work your way up if you'd like. Taking a walk, movement, if you want to look at more of the nutrition. It's saying just pick something out of here or on your own that you would like to work on as far as the nutrition or the supplements or the lifestyle. And just start incorporating this slowly, because slow, consistent changes are the ones that stick. And typically it takes anywhere from 20 to 40 days to have a habit in place. Again, I know that I've been writing down my foods as well as writing down my gratitude on the same journal. And it's just, one time I did it 2 years ago. I did it for a whole year. And I kind of got sidelined by some stress, and now I'm back into it again. And it's keeping me on track. And so whichever areas you feel like you need to work on, it's just giving you some suggestions to try to add something in or take something out, or just to look at where you need to balance your life a little bit more regarding the inflammation. Okay. So are there any other questions?